Scholars of hadith have written that covering of more, distance of less solely depends on the status of the individuals. Is anybody ready to work for it after knowing about the bliss, favours, comforts and pleasures of a heaven? Everybody must be thinking of entering it, but only wishes, desires and yearnings won't do. One has to work righteous deeds for it. How foolish are those who harbour a desire to go to hell, but do nothing to achieve it. They rather pass a life of utter carelessness and negligence, immersed in vices. Every believer is required to follow the commands of Allah in every department of life. As per the Holy Quran, Almighty Allah has purchased the lives and properties of the believers in return for heaven. Hence, it is incumbent on the believers to deserve heaven by fulfilling the demands of divine code, but to claim heaven in spite of keeping asleep while the caller is calling for prayer, evading fast, dying without performing hajj for love of money, losing consideration of permitted and prohibited in business, usurping others' money by foul means, thinking the learning of the Quran and Hadith as an act of indecency, committing offences against the weak, using the destitute as bonded labour, considering the taking of bribe as something obligatory, usurping wealth and property of the orphans, feeling disturbed at the offering of nawafil, supererogatory prayer, and avoiding the remembrance of Allah. It is sheer foolishness. One who has to keep himself under control for achieving upper classes of heaven and put up with the displeasure of self. In putting divine code into practice, it is mentioned in a hadith, hell has been surrounded with desires and heaven with displeasures. That is, heaven lies behind displeasure of bearing hardships or in offering prayers, being faithful to Allah the Exalted and keeping away from prohibited desires. Hence, the main source of reaching heaven is to bear displeasure. On the contrary, one who is immersed in desires and sets aside the question of permitted and prohibited, his lust and desires will take him to hell. As per one hadith, the wise is one who keeps his desire under control and works righteous deeds for the hereafter. Unwise is one who is guided by his desires and pins his faith to Allah Almighty. Anyone who wants to enter heaven and keep himself safe from hell would not prefer this world to the hereafter. Indeed, it is the height of folly to be oblivious to one's permanent abode. The Messenger of Allah said, I saw nothing like hell, whose deserter remains neglectful, and a more attractive place like heaven, whose cherisher keeps sleeping. Worldly life is a journey whose destination for the believers in heaven, but attainment of heaven requires hard labour, for the object, which is very precious, requires labour of the same magnitude. The Messenger of Allah, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, is reported to have said, anyone who fears long and arduous journeys starts right early in the night, and one who starts early in the night reaches his destination. Look, the bargain of Allah is dear. Look, Allah's bargain is heaven. That is how amazing it is that one goes on doing hellish acts in spite of being sure of hellish miseries and torments, and sleeping comfortably even after being attracted towards the favours and blessings because of their sluggishness. But it is astonishing that those trying to save themselves from the fire of hell and having desire for heaven pass time in idleness and inactivity. When a person has to go on journey to achieve some worldly purpose, he makes preparations very early and earnestly, and makes sacrifice of his peace and comforts. For leaving on the appointed time, the traveller of the hereafter should learn a lesson from this, and should follow the commands of Allah Almighty instead of obeying his own desire. A man sacrifices his all for worldly gains, but does very little or almost nothing for the eternal abode. End. Or almost nothing for